What's up, everyone? I'm James Baney, and I'm here to talk about The Bad Batch for the last time. This is episode 15. This is The Calvary Has Arrived. This is the season 3 finale of The Bad Batch. This is the series finale of The Bad Batch. Let's finish the mission. I have a lot to say about this episode. Amazing. Amazing. I'm so glad that it ended the way that it ended. So many predictions that were obvious. So many things that I totally missed. And let's just get started with the episode. Right away, I was very wrong about Rampart. So here's the thing. I thought maybe that they would kill him off, but then when I saw how they handled him about being captured, I thought, okay, maybe there will be a lot of deaths in the last episode. I'm not really sure how that's going to be handled, but it appears that giving Rampart back to the Empire and just letting him go back to prison would be a nice sort of children's show friendly way of handling that character. But immediately he's right back in this episode talking with Hemlock, and he's going to be a big pivotal part of the direction of this episode. He's very much in it. We'll talk about him later, but that was the first initial thing, is I thought this wasn't going to go the way that I thought it was going to go, which generally I would say most of the episode did go how I sort of predicted, or how we all sort of predicted it to be. But Rampart was a big misstep on my part. Funny. Yeah, he's just totally in the episode a lot. The kids are going through with their plan to escape, and meanwhile, Echo and Emery are on their way to get into the vault, which is kind of counterproductive, but it all makes sense as far as which way each character is thinking and how they're going to manage to get out of this situation. The biggest thing that we get from this episode is the kaiju of the Zillo Beast being released by Omega. This was awesome. I mean, I think the way that it was released, the way that the Bad Batch says, who do you think did that? Is that Echo or is that Omega? And, you know, Hunter and Wrecker being like, Omega. Like, just immediately, I don't know, I really like the way that it was all shot. I like the way that the thing escaped. Now, granted, I will say that I don't necessarily know that it's a happy ending for the Zillo Beast, because I imagine that the Empire, with it being still on that planet, they would probably scour and recover all of their lost assets. So maybe the Zillo Beast ended up getting captured again. Sorry to ruin your day. But at the same time, I think the point here is just that it was a major distraction and a way to sort of mean that a lot of people had to go react to that, and also provided an entrance for the rest of the Bad Batch into the base of Tantis. I will say here, there is one little section that's kind of funny, and I'm almost sure if it's not like like they didn't really have any other choice and it's kind of a bad edit, but maybe that's the intent. I'm not really sure. But there's this major scene with the Zillo Beast, and it's wreaking havoc, and the music is blaring, and then hard cut. And I thought in a moment that it was going to be one of these like joke things where you hard cut to boom, explosion and a big thing, but it didn't do that. And I kind of was curious if it really just came down to editing the episode, and they were like, well, how are we going to go from this scene to this scene when the music is doing this and moving in here? And they really just didn't have a good option. So they just sort of like, just cut it. I don't know. I don't want to say took me out of the thing, but I was like, whoa, that was a weird choice. Meh. But anyway, all this bad stuff is happening, and Hemlock decides that he's going to release these crazy super clones, which I don't actually know if they have a name or not. Maybe StarWars.com has confirmed this, but right now I'm just sort of calling them the Knights of Hem. I'm coining that, by the way, Knights of Hem. Yeah, all of them sort of get released, and these troopers look insane. Like, I would really like to see more of these. We're not really sure exactly what's going to happen with this technology or what they're doing here. I assume it's all over. But man, I liked the X clones, those things. That whole storyline was really cool. And obviously the one is still involved in this too. But I really liked how each of these clones were sort of like evil advanced versions of the Bad Batch, and they all had their own special skills and stuff. It would be cool to see that played out a little bit more. Maybe even instead of the commandos, because, you know, that's cool, but they didn't really show their ability that much. And spoiler alert, of course, you know, we see Scorch get killed at the end, so I don't know. Maybe a toss-up here on these characters. But I really liked them, and this epic battle happens, and it's... The only thing I'll say about it is that I want to go back and rewatch it, and because it was sort of dark, sort of difficult to tell who was who with all the costumes being very dark black. But you can tell that the scene is intense, that the fight is really crazy. And I want to go back and rewatch it, but I got a lot out of that, especially with the fact that it ends with slamming down Crosshair's arm and cutting it off. Wow. I didn't see that coming. That was a crazy ending. More on that later. Echo and Emery meet up with the kids, and they're going to go rescue all the clones, while at the same time the kids get their way off of the planet. That's a nice little ending for those characters. I mean, they show up at the end, but you know what I mean. They show them leaving the planet. That's really cool. As Echo and Omega get to the facility where they're keeping all of the clones, they release everybody, including Rampart and Nala Se, which Nala Se then says that she's going to go destroy all of that evidence, and she's followed by Rampart. Meanwhile, Echo and Omega head over to the torture room to try to find where they're keeping the rest of the Bad Batch. And these stories sort of take place at the same time, like right here at this moment, these two things. But I'll talk about the Nala Se and Rampart thing first, because wow, like what a cool ending. Her, you know, sneaking into that and getting into the files, Rampart coming up and saying, I want to know everything about this Project Necromancer. I think there's a chance, you know, that what's going through his mind is he can redeem himself, saying, hey, I was there. Yes, I was forced into helping them get into the base, but at the same time, I saved this Emperor. This is important information, and you are so glad that I saved it. But Nala Se, being the last of the Caminos, being the last of a species that was, you know, destroyed by Rampart himself, says, nope, this data goes with me, and so do you. And when she's shot, she drops the grenade. You don't actually see Rampart killed, but you do. You see him in the room when the bomb goes off, and then they cut to seeing everything blow up, and you're like, dang, that guy got killed hard. What a solid ending to that character. I almost like his death more than Hemlock's death later, and we'll talk about that. But we're back in the torture room, and Hemlock is able to grab Omega and stop her and, you know, kind of hold her at gunpoint. And when all of this is happening, the rest of the Bad Batch is able to escape, and another fight breaks out among all of the good guys and the bad guys, including the Knights of Hem. And everything sort of resolves in that situation as good for the Bad Batch, but Hemlock is getting away with Omega, so they start chasing after her. Incredible fight yet again, and I'm just excited to talk about the next section, so let's get there. This is when we get, I think, the best portion of the episode. The reason I say it's the best portion is it feels so perfectly like the end to a story. The bad guy killed off. You get to see all of their progress to this point pay off. You get to see redemption. You get to see these characters interact in ways that you would have never predicted, you know, years ago. It's incredible. But Hemlock is taking Omega out there, and of course it's raining. It reminds me kind of Edu in Rogue One. And you get this moment where he's like really like holding her to gunpoint, and he's like, you know, they already shot down the ship. They were trying to get away. And so he has no other resort but to hold her by the gunpoint. And he's like, you guys move or you do anything, I'm going to kill Omega. It's nuts. I mean, they also killed off Scorch, which is nuts because I know a lot of people really like those characters, specifically that one. And he just kind of gets killed and shot off the side. So I don't know. I guess that's the end of that. But this whole big scene with Hemlock and Omega, and then you have Hunter and Crosshair there. And Crosshair still has no hand, but he's got the target on him. And you have this just amazing moment of seeing Omega position herself in the right way, and Hunter and Crosshair having this conversation about how Crosshair has to take the shot. Now, here's the thing. This was the payoff that I predicted. There was a moment a few episodes ago where Crosshair had this opportunity to fire his weapon and make the shot, and he missed. And they made a very strong point that he missed, and he failed, and he cowered his head. I knew that they were going to come back and they were going to redeem this by allowing Crosshair to make the shot that mattered. Hunter talks Crosshair into believing that Omega is grown up, that she has the ability to know what to do in this moment, and he's right. And Crosshair, having now sort of figuratively and literally removed that faulty hand, that problem that he was having, and come to terms with the fact that he can do this, she sets him up, he makes the shot, and the team is successful at everything. It's not just this situation. The team has come all the way to destroying Hemlock and knocking him off the bridge and eliminating him from their lives and the lives of everyone that he's ever been involved with. This is such a good scene. And it's not over yet. When she runs up, she even has the moment to choose if she wants to hug Hunter or Crosshair, and chooses Crosshair. That, again, is confirmation that those two are the main characters of this show. Hunter has been the father figure of the Bad Batch for a long time, being the person that's leading them into taking Omega in the first place, but this show has become Crosshair and Omega's show. In that moment, given the opportunity to choose between hugging her dad and hugging her brother, even though I know that's not how you word it, she chose her brother, and that's so good, but I'm still glad they gave Hunter the moment at the end. Wow, what an episode. We know Tarkin's on his way. We didn't know he was this close. The Bad Batch get in the ship. They blast off to hyperspace. And I would say literally a second later, boom, 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 3 Star Destroyers show up. Again, like Rogue One, that was almost the end of them had they shown up 1 second before and then shot into him. Yeah, just the timing, it's so good. It's so perfect. Tarkin shows up and does this really weird thing that makes no sense to me other than plot. He gets all of the evidence and he's like, I guess move all of this funding to Project Stardust. Who's he talking to? This assistant isn't going to move all the money to Project Stardust. That's going to be something that he's going to have to ask. I mean, he doesn't have to ask permission, but anyway, it was a weird who are you talking to, Tarkin? Anyway, it also sort of confused me a little bit because, like I said in previous episodes, we do know that all of this stuff goes through Project Necromancer, or at least to some degree a way to clone and transfer the abilities of the Emperor into another body. All of that stuff still sort of ends up happening. So it's a little confusing to me how, but at the same time, you just know that, the Emperor's going to make it happen. Although he's a little out of money because Tarkin keeps moving all of his assets over to the Death Star program. But this episode wraps up in a nice way. Good for, like I said before, it's basically a children's show. It's children-friendly, child-friendly. It's an adult show, if you will, that is child-friendly. But here's the thing is that it does end up in a happy place. everybody makes it back to Pabu, and, you know, everybody's going to figure out what the next steps are, and we get this great shot of the Bad Batch as they are right now, standing or sitting down at this fountain in the middle of the city, and having nothing ahead of them but their own choices and their own decisions and the lives they choose to live, which, as it turns out, they choose to live together. We get an epilogue. I don't know how much further into the future this epilogue is, but it's very noticeably years. We get a grown-up Omega looking a lot like the royal ceremony, medal ceremony Luke, with being a young blonde character wearing a yellow open jacket, getting ready to go fight for the rebellion. Yeah, it just, all of that seemed very optimistic Luke from that time. But, you know, you get her, and we get to see an older Hunter looking very Solid Snake yet again. But he's got this beard, he's got longer hair, he's looking older, and I assume his age is still double everybody else's. So if it's been 10 years, I don't know. That still seems kind of far away from the rebellion. I don't know how long it's been, but let's just say, for sakes, because it's kind of like 20 years between, you know, this and this. If it's that 10-year spot, then he's aged basically 20 years. She's aged 10 years. She's probably about 23 at this point. I don't know. It's tough to say. We get this really happy ending where he still has his abilities to tell that she's sneaking out. She's going to join the rebellion. She says that's her fight. And they say goodbye. Wrecker and Crosshair we don't get to see as older versions of themselves, but they are there. And she leaves, and her ship goes off into the sun, into the moonlight, if you will. And that is the end of the series. So a couple takeaways from the ending is we know that certain characters live probably peaceful lives until they die with no controversy or anything like that. I assume those 3 clones on their island die old and in their beds, you know, kind of thing. They just live out their days, and that's fine. As far as Omega goes, she goes off to the rebellion, and it makes me wonder what is the next like animated series. If they do the thing where they normally sort of, in a loose way, spin off of the idea, we definitely know that we're not getting the teenage Omega Asajj Ventress story that was kind of predicted when Asajj came in. Does she have Force abilities? Is she going to learn to become a Jedi or a Force user of some sort? Confirmation that did not happen. Well, we don't know that. But it seems likely that she probably lived out her days with the other guys and then just decided to get back into the fight. That being said, Tech did die. So we can put that to bed, and we can also put that in a spot where we can say forever now, what are some of the hardest to deal with, like worst deaths in Star Wars? And I think it's up there fighting with Kanan. I think most people will probably agree with that. Tech was a hard one, but in the pantheon of some of the best deaths in the series. So take that for what you will, but Tech is dead. Closing things out, I would like to say that this season of The Bad Batch is, in my opinion, the best season of the 3. And while I haven't had the ability to really totally soak it all in as far as like how it closed out, and now that it's all done and how did everything wrap up, compare it to other animated shows, but I think that there is a really good chance that these episodes and this season sort of cements The Bad Batch as one of the better animated shows that they've done. I think too many people have too many connections to Clone Wars, but man, to me, I think that it probably is Rebels and then the Bad Batch. But that last season of the Clone Wars was really good. Anyway, it doesn't really need to be ranked. All I'm trying to say here is that the Bad Batch was a show that I don't think anybody really took seriously when it first came out, because it felt like a bonus from the Clone Wars. It felt like we were going to sort of sidestep for a little bit and tell these people's story too. And the way that the show ended up was like, oh, wow, those characters were really important and really pivotal to Star Wars as a whole. And I'm really appreciative of that the show was able to grow into itself and become as important and as impactful as it was for fans. So congratulations, The Bad Batch, on 3 great seasons. The third one was amazing. The series ended, I think, in probably the best way possible. Wow. And that's it. That's it for the Bad Batch reaction show. That wraps up all seasons, all episodes, and actually wraps up me on the Resistance broadcast. But don't unsubscribe, because John and Lacey are still going to be doing the Resistance broadcast once a week, as well as their other podcast, Nerdy and Nice. So if you guys are interested in either one of those things, which I know you are, because you're interested in Star Wars and you're a nerd just like them, most likely, go listen to those shows, go support the channel, and have a great time listening to future episodes with them. But as for the Bad Batch and the Resistance broadcast, for me, that is a wrap. Thank you so much to everybody who has been watching for the longest time and supporting everything that I've ever done for the Resistance broadcast, including all of these little animated side steps where I'm breaking down the episodes and stuff. Thank you guys for watching the episodes. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Thank you for liking. Thank you for commenting. And thank you for just being a part of my life and enjoying the content that I've created. So with that said, I'm out. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.